Hi, so welcome to our podcast. This is our first podcast at Shelter Stories, and so I feel like it's good to just give us everyone a brief introduction as to who we are. But first, let me just, it's been a while since I spoke to you, Clement and Will, so like, how you guys doing?
Yeah, all been pretty good.
I'm
Just
chilling.
yeah,
Yeah,
working on school and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I've been
like
pretty
school.
busy, but
Yeah,
but I've been
yeah, school is
surviving.
actually like screwing me over, but yeah, glad to be on the podcast.
Yeah, school's like pretty tough these days, junior year. But anyway, so what the organization's all about is that we're trying to deal with like the strong stigma and a sense of resentment against all these people experiencing homelessness around the world. And we feel like they're given stereotypes that they don't really paint the real picture about them. And we feel it's important that we draw attention to this cause and like help people truly understand like what this is all about. Because it's not just these stereotypes you get like given for these homeless people, right? Like some people just assume that it's because they made poor life choices or um, have had like drug problems in the past when really the root causes are a lot deeper than this, and it like lays in structural issues that we're trying to like raise awareness about and make sure like this is something that matters more and it's more important to people around the world. Especially helping like what is it like 150 million people around the world that don't have that basically don't have a home. So yeah, so basically I'm Mark and I'm founder and director of uh, this Shelter Stories, and then here we also have with me joined Will and Clement, the other leaders of the organization. Will's our co-founder and our director of operations, and Clement is also like one of our top directors. So I'm gonna first just start off by like sharing what I feel about the situation. So obviously, um, I feel like it's like a topic that's not really discussed enough, especially with like the top authorities and like the problems are really clear and um, I guess like the housing issues that we see around the world. Housing's very expensive these days. The cost of living's gone up, and people just can't really afford to basically like survive in this current day. And that's why we see like homelessness go up so high in places like San Francisco and LA, but also in our hometown, like in Hong Kong. Most people don't like assume Hong Kong to be a place where you'd see um, a lot of homeless people, or like it's not really a topic talked about much at home. But um, yeah, when basically during the summer, like myself, Clement, and Will, we all went um, on a base on like a homeless walk basically at night, and we basically kind of saw like the magnitude of the problem in Hong Kong. So, do you guys want to share more uh, about that
Yeah,
experience?
yeah, no, it really started off just like as a random idea of just like me and Will, and like all of us, like we enjoy cooking. We thought that you know, it would be pretty fun if we like cook 60 portions of like a meal to feed to the homeless. And growing up, I think the stigma was really that like my parents were sort of telling me that, oh, if you don't study hard, if you don't study well, if you make bad life choices, you'll just end up like these people that we see on the streets. Um, and that's sort of like the mindset I had growing up, and honestly, like till that point, during the summer, I sort of still had that mindset, but I just saw it as like a nice thing, as a nice thing to do, like a fun bonding activity with friends. But I think that like throughout um, the experience definitely like changed my sort of perspective on what the whole what on like what homelessness is. And I think that one conversation that really stuck with me was with this Canadian and this guy from the Bahamas who was together sitting on a bench in a park. And the Canadian sort of told me how they got displaced from COVID-19 from their jobs, and they've never found their way back since. And made me realize that like homelessness isn't just as simple as, oh, make bad life choices and end up on the streets. It's really like a system of like um you know government policies and like housing issues and sort of bad luck that causes a lot of people. sort of get misplaced onto the streets. And yeah, you guys remember those two people that we talked to? Any
Yeah,
insights?
remember them very vividly. And I remember Canadian guy's friend, the guy from the Caribbean. He's also like he had a very interesting life story as well. And like he went through a lot in his past, you know. Obviously grew up abroad, and I remember him telling us that he at one point weighed like 650 pounds, and he had like major kidney problems, and somehow he managed to like fight through all of that. And like I think he lost around 300 pounds, he said, something like that. Um, and but now he's also just like out here on like the benches at night in Hong Kong, and um, it's like quite a struggle. And because especially like he initially moved to, I think it was Guangzhou in the mainland to find a job, but like with COVID and everything, like it was basically all gone for him. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think during these homeless walks over the summer, before the summer, I never really had a good idea of the homelessness in Hong Kong. Like I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, but there's still like areas that or like parts of the city that I'm not completely exposed to. So when we went on these hikes or these walks, I was able to see the way they really live in Hong Kong. Like for example, when we handed out food in Sham Shui Po, which is an area in Hong Kong where there are a lot of homeless. I saw that a lot of them were actually doing drugs and like hard drugs such as ketamine or heroin, which I didn't know that like existed that was available in Hong Kong. And when passing out the food, um, I saw them try to hide the needles from us because it was us three, and then we also had Clement's cousin who was and my cousin come with us, and the fact that they tried to hide it so we don't see them do drugs shows that they have like deep inside they have some good intentions. They still know they know that what they're doing is wrong, and it's just nice to see them try to not like try to hide they're just trying to hide their flaws from us as well.
yeah. I think
yeah,
that yeah, like I feel like when we sort of like come across homeless people just in our day-to-day lives, we sort of always have like a negative thought of like a negative bias towards them. And but I think that like actually interacting with these people that were misplaced onto the streets and like hearing their stories sort of made me realize just how much story is behind like everyone you see on like that like yeah everyone that you come across like in your day-to-day lives like they have a story that's so much longer than like you could ever imagine. And it's like it really doesn't do them justice to just sort of like judge them based on their appearance of like their life situation.
yeah, totally. And so when I first did one of these, it was with Impact HK. It's like a charity in Hong Kong that they do a lot of these. Like they do these things weekly, and they have like a group of people that do them as well. So um, basically, the first time I joined them, I also like wasn't very, I guess, like knowledgeable on this topic, and I also had those like previous misconceptions as well. But this like that experience was very like eye catching and eye opening to me, especially after speaking to some of the people because like they just tell you life stories and you kind of like you get more empathy and you kind of feel like you can put yourself in their shoes and like you realize that this isn't like this is not their it's not their fault. Like there's a lot of things that led to this outcome, and it's like it's definitely not um it's not like something they just chose to like to do. They didn't choose to be out there. And one of them especially told me that um like her and her daughter don't get along well. So basically, like during the day when her daughter's out at work, she goes to her daughter's like apartment to stay there. But at night, like she basically comes back out to Team Sache near like the cultural center, and she just stays there at night because her and her daughter don't like they have like no working relationship at all. And it kind of like sucks to see like this sort of thing, especially like within family as well. Because if you have like a family member, such as your mother, like out there struggling, even if you guys don't get along, like you should like I don't know, I feel like people should try to help like their family members out, their relatives, even if like even if it means they have to spend more money, like it's not always about that. It's not always about the money. It's about these like emotional connections and relationships too. So that's really important. And another thing is that it's not just specific to Hong Kong, but like the prevalent drug usage. Because I read this book about about homelessness as well, and said like a lot of the reason why you see so many veterans out there as well these days is just because of the PTSD, like and like the bad memories they had from being out at battle, from being deployed, and a lot of times they shift to drugs, like or alcohol to basically like kind of just forget about the situation they're in, like forget about these bad memories and like try to just relax and like basically just like remove the problem from their mind, which obviously like eventually then could lead to addiction and something that like they can't really help because um I mean like nothing's just going right for them in life. And for my first Impact HK uh walk, I also learned that a lot of people who stayed in Team Sacha overnight basically got kicked out by like local authorities early in the morning, like 6, 7 a.m. because they didn't want like Hong Kong to have like a dented image or like a thought that it's a place with lots of homeless people since that area especially has a lot of tourists during the day from like mainly from mainland China, but just all over the place, of course. And that really like startled me as well because it was clear that like the authorities weren't really trying to like fix the problem. They're kind of trying to hide the problem. And when you're trying to just hide the problem like that, it's never gonna be solved unless people actually like trying to do something about it. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And
And you go, Clement.
yeah, yeah, here in the United States, which is where I currently attend high school, um, yeah, like the opioid usage is like a problem that's sort of misinterpreted, as in like most people just assume that, oh, like they just decided to do like cocaine one day and ended up on the streets. But I've actually met someone um that was a successful entrepreneur who had like a nice tire repair shop somewhere in Connecticut. And one day he got into a car accident and he required surgery for it. And he was in sort of constant pain from the surgery and from the accident. So he was always like he was getting prescribed like these pain medication, painkillers, whatever. And those prescriptions of pain medicine like led him down like a very bad opioid addiction to the point where like he went to prison for opioid usage um and when he was out of prison he just ended up like on the streets. And at one point he even like preferred to like go to prison since he would have a roof over his head and 3 hot meals a day. And yeah, that like completely skewed my like image on sort of drugs because like it really isn't just, oh, I'm gonna do meth one day and then I'm gonna end up on the streets. Like there's so much factors that are beyond your control that that could lead to sort of addiction and eventually like homelessness and all the other problems that addiction leads to. But like I think that I don't really like the sort of the image of these like, oh, when you see a homeless person, like avoid them and like don't give them money. Or, um really like firmly like turn them away. I think that like even though like I understand that you would want to be safe, I think that sort of leads to people having like a really closed-mindedness towards people and like very like non-compassionate sort of attitude towards people. So I think that for one is something that needs to be changed. And even if you want to keep like your children safe, it's important to educate them on like the situation of drug usage and homelessness.
Yeah, a lot. I feel like a lot of places in America, especially just poor communities, a lot of the people think that when from a young age, they tend to start thinking that doing drugs is cool, or um, yeah, doing drugs is cool, and going to school is like something only nerds would do. So a lot of them get exposed to drugs and violence when they're young, and they just go down this path of just, and they end up being homeless. And then from then they realize it's almost like too late to revert their decisions. So I think, yeah, as Clement said, it's really important to just educate kids about drugs, what comes with it, and yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Like any other thoughts or ideas you guys have? Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to like circling back to Hong Kong, I sort of noticed that um, like the entire population, like homeless population, was either the elderly or immigrants, which is very heartbreaking because like it kind of it kind of made me feel that like Hong Kong as a city is just not doing enough to protect the elderly. And if you see, like who's doing the hard labor of like pushing the heavy carts or like living in like poor conditions, like it's almost always like elderly people. And it's sort of heartbreaking that like they've lived such a long and like honorable life and they sort of have to end it in that condition. Um, and also like I think it's also heartbreaking that um that many immigrants come to Hong Kong in search of like better jobs and sort of like a better life to start a family or whatnot, and sort of end up just not even like having a house and sort of like um I met this guy. Yeah, we met this guy named Ian from Malawi that came to Hong Kong in search for work, and he was sort of spending his night in a McDonald's because he sort of had nowhere else to like put a roof over his head, and yeah, like he spoke very little English, and um yeah, so kind of made me feel like Hong Kong as a city is just not sort of doing enough to protect certain populations.
yeah, I saw this a lot during the summer. Because I did like a internship during the summer at this
Mm,
like a transitional housing place. They have like they run four different transitional housing schemes across Hong Kong, and basically the one I worked at, like I like helped conduct some of the interviews and just like do some admin stuff. And basically what I found was that a lot of like the people like coming into interview shared stories about how like it was basically impossible to get like public housing access and like the waiting list like for the government public housing was like just super long and it basically meant like they didn't really have a choice. Like they couldn't like if they couldn't get into this public housing, like they wouldn't have anywhere to live because like housing is just too expensive and um they can't afford basically to even like to get like private housing. So these like um these transitional housing schemes like really help them a lot in giving them like much cheaper rent they have to pay and they get to have like 2 3 years there so that they have somewhere to go while they're waiting for their public housing.
mhm,
But yeah, I found a lot of them were like a lot of them were either from the mainland or they're also for sure like all the locals, but also like a few immigrants too. And for that, this was like a problem that was just like affecting basically all people in Hong Kong, and also points again to like cost of living and like housing prices being the main root cause of all this. I think we'll probably end our our first inaugural podcast there, and um, yeah, stay tuned for many more. Uh, yeah.